Good morning. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of MythBusters, part of the Studio Takes series. I'm Dane Scott. And coming up here in less than a minute, we're going to do a session that I think people will get something out of, especially if they've wondered one way or the other whether it's a good idea to be involved with an agent, a talent agent, a booking agent, whatever you want to call it. Are agents useful? Are they essential? Are they critical? Are they meh? And what kind of experiences have you had with them? We'll look for your comment and your feedbacks on that. And we'll also be giving our own thoughts and opinions on it as well. So be sure to stick with us for that. Coming up in just a little over 10 seconds, today's MythBusters event. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to MythBusters. Dane Scott here. And today's session, do I need an agent to succeed in voiceovers? You may have some thoughts leading into this, or maybe you've never really investigated the whole idea of having an agent, and you're just wondering what that's all about. Well, we'll try and address some of that today. And we are live on the internet on a number of different groups, and including the Fiverr and Upwork Voiceover Lounge and Fiverr VO Enclave. And I'm coming through on my speaker here. We'll turn that down so I don't distract myself. And also through Rate My Voiceover and on the voiceover coaching page. So 4 different places where you can pick this up. If you haven't yet, tell Siri or tell Amazon Echo or whichever that you'd like to be reminded each day, maybe 5 minutes ahead of time, to tune in so that you're ready to go with us and we can get together on these MythBusters all this month, talking about ways that we can kind of sort through and understand and comprehend and cope with all of the rumors, theories, representations, claims, assertions, and so forth that various experts and experts give you about voiceover. Lots of topics we can discuss, and in addition to the ones that I proposed, if you have maybe a question of, people always say this or they always say that. Is that true or not? What has been your experience? I'd be happy to consider that as one of our topics for this month. I have most of the month plotted out, but I do have a few slots left that we can devote to something that you'd specifically like to cover. So let's hear from you today. Feel free to drop in with any comments if you had them during the course of our conversation, and let's get into it. So once again, in case you're just tuning in, today's subject is, do I need a talent agent, and is that something that is necessary for me to succeed? Well, the first question that we really want to raise here is whether this is really an either-or thing. By that I mean, do you have to have either go through an agent and kind of do things 100% that way? Or can you do your own booking and pursue your own course, including things that you would do as a free agent, just contacting places where you'd like to do voiceovers or individual companies where you'd like to offer to do voiceovers. In addition to that, is it a situation where you can either do those kind of things or pay to play, and sites that are kind of like they kind of serve as a booking agent, but they're basically a place that connects buyers and sellers together? Upwork, voiceovers.com, voices.com, and of course Fiverr, which is the platform that I'm on the most. Or is it a situation where you can have the best of both worlds? You can do both. And I will say that it is not an either-or situation. You can do both pay to play and work through an agent. There are some people who claim that agents will blacklist you if they find out that you're on a platform like Fiverr. The reason is because you're essentially selling your product, yourself, your voice, at a different rate than what they'd be selling you at, and therefore it just kind of, the two are in conflict. I guess that's possible, and maybe there are some cases where that has occurred, but I have not heard of them through direct exposure to anyone who has said that they've experienced that. There are some ways around that. You can, for example, use an alias on some of these platforms so that it doesn't become a conflict of interest with what you're doing through your talent agent, and therefore you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You'll notice that some people, I've seen situations where someone actually shows only the lower part of their face in their gig photo, that kind of thing, from the nose down, or from the chin up to about here, and so, or they'll go with a caricature, or they won't show their face at all, and they'll use an alias. So I mean, it definitely does not have to be a situation where you choose, okay, either I'm going to work through an agent, or I'm going to do things on my own and do things through pay-to-play and other booking platforms. Now, what does an agent really do? That's the next thing that we can talk about here. An agent is a representative of you to casting directors, primarily, people who are looking for work. And the casting director will go through an agent, and they'll say, okay, send me some people that would be right for this role or this kind of a job. The talent agent then will go through their demos. They will, check their databases, and they'll come up with a list of people that they think would be appropriate, and ones whom they have confidence in. This is an important point. Ones that they feel confident are going to be good ones to represent their talent agency. So for that reason, if you're working through a talent agent, it's important that you have a good reputation, that you have a great demo, and that when you work with producers, that they have a great experience with you, whether you're just auditioning or you're doing the actual voiceover. So because of that, the talent agent wants to feel confident when they refer you to a casting director or directly to an agency that wants to hire, that you're going to be someone that will do a good job, and that you have a good personality, someone that they can work with, someone that's not going to get crabby if they're asked to do a couple extra takes, things like that. Now, the talent agent, what do they get out of this? About a 10% cut. It varies a little bit from one agent to another, but it's usually around in that range. Fiverr, on the other hand, takes a 20% cut, though in a sense, I think they almost do more for you or me than a talent agent does. So I don't have a problem with a 20% cut going to Fiverr, especially when you consider that some of the other pay-to-play places will take 50%, 70%, 90%, just crazy amounts from what you would earn. In addition to talent agents, there are also casting agents. That basically is a hybrid. It's someone who is both a casting director and a talent agent. And this normally does not occur in large markets. It tends to be in the smaller or medium-sized markets where someone plays both roles. They not only are responsible to the corporation or whoever is trying to find talent for their voiceover, but they're also the person who will select those who should audition. So they handle that whole thing rather than the talent agent referring you off to a casting director where you would do an audition and then potentially do a role. As I mentioned, that tends to be something that happens more in smaller markets, and those are called casting agents, kind of a hybrid of casting director and talent agent. Now, what are the benefits of working through a talent agent? Well, for one thing, you have better paying jobs. It's more lucrative. The average job through a talent agent is going to be scores better than what you would get through, something like Fiverr or Upwork in most cases, or platforms like that. I remember the first time, well, I'll get to that. I'll tell you one of my own stories on that. They also have smaller commissions than pay-to-play sites, as I mentioned, around 10% generally through a talent agent. That in itself is kind of attractive. The downsides to using a talent agent, well, it's not easy to get in with them. In a lot of cases, they've got a lot of people already, so many on their rosters that they're not really looking for more people. Or if they are, there's a lot of stiff competition for it. Hi, Kendrick. Welcome to the feed today, and to everyone else who has tuned in. So, they've got a lot of people on their rosters, and the competition for any slots that are available is stiff. The people that you're going to be up against are going to be good talent, and you have to be good yourself if you want to be able to work through a talent agent. The jobs normally require an audition, which also is the case on some of the pay-to-play sites. Fiverr, not so much, but you do pretty much expect that you will be auditioning for jobs when you're working through a talent agent. And as I mentioned, they're looking for high caliber people, so their expectations are higher. Therefore, it's not something you can slough off, that you can just kind of blow through a voiceover and deliver it. And if you've got good basic skills, a lot of times, through some of these platforms, you've got your job, you've got your pay, and you're on your own. You're on to the next one. Some people will deal with Fiverr, for example, as though they're flipping burgers. I totally disagree with that approach. I think that it's important that we try to do as good a job on Fiverr as we do anywhere else. And, I like to think that I'm doing a job for a network every time I'm doing a voiceover, whether it's for Fiverr or somewhere else, try and keep that level of expertise up. But again, talent agents are expecting a high level of performance out of what they get from you. And as a result, it's a higher pressure situation. You can expect that you're going to feel a little tense or a little more nervous as you're doing these voiceovers because there's more at stake. If someone has actually accepted you, that you've auditioned and you've been accepted, now you're on the platform, you are on the stage, and when they call for you to start recording, you take that deep breath and you start voicing, and you've got to be good. You've got to do a good job. Generally, the people that you work with, who are the producers and some cases it's even the engineer who will be guiding you through the voiceover, depends on the size of the market, are very nice people. They're very professional, and sometimes those two things go together. You tend to find that more professional people are also better people. So it's not that when you get together with them, they're going to be all harsh and say, "What was that? That was a terrible read." No, they're going to be very nice with you, but they will expect a good performance. Now, in order to work with talent agents, there are certain things that really have to be in place. First of all, let's assume that COVID is not an issue as it is right now, but normally it can be a very common thing for people to have to be able to travel to go to a studio to do an audition. Sometimes you can just record yourself and send it over as a file, and that's taken care of. But sometimes they'll actually maybe they'll do a talent call, and they'll bring in half a dozen people in an afternoon to audition for a part. And so in that case, you have to show up at the studio, which is really kind of fun. Actually, it's a kind of a kick. I enjoy doing it. Then when it comes to doing the actual voiceover, you'll either also be going in to do an appearance at an agency or a studio, or they'll be booking you over some kind of remote connection. And one of the most common historically used connections is called ISDN, which is a very stable form of something kind of like internet. It goes over the telephone, but it's a hybrid, high-quality feed that is such high quality that they can actually take what you're saying as you're speaking into your microphone and record it at their end, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? But it's very expensive to get into. It's the unit itself can be $1,500. The installation can be $75 or more, and then you've got monthly fees for the ISDN service. So unless you're doing a good amount of voiceovers that way, ISDN is pretty cost prohibitive. Another alternative is Source Connect, which starts at $0, but for the $0 service, you get something that's not really robust and, in my experience, not really reliable. That might have improved since the last time I tried it, so I don't want to say that definitively, but that was my experience. I've heard that Source Connect, the paid-for one, the premium, is a more reliable service and has more bells and whistles and is more appropriate for professional use. And the price for that starts at $8 and goes up to about $24 a month. If you take $24 a month times 12, though, that's a good amount of money per year. And unless you're getting booked, that becomes, unless you can kind of mark it off as an expense on your taxes, it's money that's kind of down the drain. So you have to, before you get into all of that, it's kind of it's a chicken and the egg thing, because a lot of agencies say in order to work with us, you have to have it. And of course, unless you have some work coming in from them, it's hard to justify it. So, sometimes you have to just kind of take a risk at it. If you say, okay, I'm really going to try for talent agents and going that route, then you may want to just for a while, take one of these services, probably Source Connect over ISDN, because that's So expensive. Let me tell you some of my own thoughts on this stuff. I have worked with talent agents, and I've worked without talent agents. I'm not going to say anything bad against working with a talent agent. I'm just trying to lay it all out there for you. Hi, Ralph Diamond. Welcome. It's another spoke in the wheel, and it's important that we don't rely 100% on one spoke. Number one, the wheel goes around in a real funny way when you do that, and if that spoke breaks, you got a flat tire, you're not going anywhere. So it's a good idea to diversify and be offering your voiceovers in multiple platforms and in multiple ways. You do have to be good, and I mentioned that, and you should not have real high expectations. Just because you have a talent agent doesn't mean you're going to get referred, allowed to audition, or booked. It just means you're listed with a talent agent. Now, there is something kind of cool about saying, hey, I'm with such and such agency, So, there's nothing wrong with approaching some talent agents, and just expect that they may ask you, do you have Source Connect? Do you have ISDN? Can you do this or that? What's your availability? How good is your equipment? Can you travel? Stuff like that. So at the same time that you can't expect that you're going to get a lot of bookings through a talent agent, at least initially. Sometimes you may, and it's kind of surprising when you do, actually. My first job after I applied to a talent agent came on a phone call. I was at the radio station. I was still working in radio at that time. And I got this call from an agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that I was working through. And they said, are you available to do a 10-second ad? I said, sure. Okay. Are you willing to do it for $250? And I thought, I'm used to getting at least $15. I said, yeah, I think I can do it for that. And they said, okay, so here are the arrangements. You can record it at your own place. You don't have to come down for this one. It'll be $250. And I went, look, I didn't say it, but I went, oh, $250. Wow, for 10 seconds, I can do that in one breath. That's good pay, $250 a breath. So it's like, I think I kind of like this talent agent thing. So anyway, yeah, that first booking was kind of a fun surprise. That was back in the 1990s. And then that same agency eventually booked me to do an ad for Prangieway, which it was a national chain at that time of stores, kind of like a Walmart, but more of a fashion chain. I think, if I remember right, it's been a while since it was around. But I was booked to do an ad for Prangieway, and for that they wanted me to actually travel to Milwaukee, which is about a 3-hour drive each way. So I took a day off from work at the radio station, and I buzzed down to Milwaukee, and I felt like I was kind of big time here, man. This is kind of exciting, going into a town of at least a little bigger than my little Ocado where I am with 4,500 people or whatever. Here I am in the big city, and I got there a little early, and right near the agency where I was to record, there was an Olive Garden. And I'd never been to an Olive Garden, but I thought, well, that sounds kind of fancy, and I'm feeling kind of fancy. So I went to the Olive Garden, and I had soup, salad, and breadsticks, and I thought, man, this is living. So it was really fun. And then I went over to the studio, and, they welcomed me nicely, and she came and she plopped down, I don't have a good example here, but plopped down this stack of scripts, this thick of scripts. And I went, my jaw just dropped. She didn't have one ad for me. She must have had 30 ads for me to do. And it turned out that, just knocking those out one after another, I think I made something like what would have worked out to be $3,000 an hour, doing that. So I paid for my soup, salad, and breadsticks that day. And I went home feeling rather good at the end of that experience. I think that since I did that, competition has actually gotten a lot tighter. And I think it would be harder for me to get booked for those same things now. One other experience I had, again, I was called down to Milwaukee. And this was after auditioning. And what they wanted was Star Wars characters. They wanted C-3PO. They wanted Darth Vader. And Yes, what was his name? Yoda. They wanted Yoda. So I did all three, and I thought that they seemed to like what I did, except for Darth Vader. My Darth Vader wasn't working for them at all. So they were very polite about it. Great job, give me that again, and do this and do that. And when they say it like that, you kind of know, okay, this is not great job. I'm not doing this quite the way they want it. Ultimately, they did use, I think, a different voice for Darth Vader. But I got to do C-3PO and Yoda, and got my pay, and it was a fun experience. But that's about the last time I ever did agency voiceovers. I kind of got into other things, and I can't remember exactly where this all shook out, but I think basically that was kind of it for the bookings. I got maybe one other booking, and that was it. But again, the competition has gotten tougher and tougher. Now, if I had to choose whether it would be pay to play or a talent agent, which would I do? I would go with pay to play, personally, because it's easier to get booked. You get more work. You're not in kind of waiting mode all the time. Kind of like the teenage girl waiting to get the call from, invited to the prom or whatever. It just, you don't feel like that all the time. The orders, if you're doing well on a pay-to-play site, you've got orders coming in regularly. That's a good feeling. Plus, I just happen to really enjoy voiceovers, so it's kind of the more the merrier, and so I enjoyed that approach, even though I don't make as much per voiceover that way. But I do not consider it to be an either-or thing. That's my discussion today on this subject. If you have some comments, feel free to leave them after, and you can also pick up on this video and all the others in our playlist over at YouTube. Just do a search for MythBusters Dane Scott. That should be enough to bring it up. At thegigdoctor.com, thegigdoctor.com, I have a course up there that is a great resource for anybody that's thinking about doing a demo, whether they're going to ultimately produce it themselves or they're going to have somebody else do it. How do you get prepared to do a demo? How do you get your voice in the right shape for it? How do you practice up your scripts? How do you get the feedback that you need? How do you do the actual production? And I brought together a really kind of a dream team of great people, including Todd Schick, Laurent Jovan, Bill DeWeese, Mark Grau, and Don Barnes. And what a pleasure to interview and work with all of these guys on that course. So it's inexpensive, and you can order it right off the homepage at thegigdoctor.com. You can check that out. And here's a great free resource for you on Facebook, in case you're not already in our Fiverr and Upwork voiceover lounge. You can see some of our compadres there, along with Lizzie, the lounge lizard, our official mascot. So get over there and join and enjoy with us. It's the most casual voiceover spot on the internet. We just have a nice time shooting the breeze together and swapping howdies and sharing notes about voiceover. So thank you for watching today's presentation. We'll be back for a Thursday edition on the 15th of October. And until then, keep punching, and we'll see you on Facebook and on the internet. Bye for now.